Right, we are back again. It is another Monday. It's Monday the 15th. I hope everyone had a lovely Valentine's Day. I'm sure everyone did. And I am back again with my friend Carlo, just over on my right, as always. Or on your guys, yeah, my right, you guys left. I don't know. Anyway, that guy over there, the guy that we all hate.
That's me.
And this week we've got special guest. I say special, he's not that special really. Special to me and Carlo, but everyone else probably hates him. No, it's Deoxys, as you can see above. How you doing, Deoxys?
Good morning. Doing alright.
What time in the morning is it for you? Just
It is 6 a.m.
six.
Did you
Jesus.
get up, or have you not gone to bed?
No, I haven't gone to bed.
Yeah, that's
Bedtime's
work.
around 9 a.m.
Good
now.
stuff.
He's pulling a
It's the
Carlo.
opposite.
He's pulling a Carlo. Rightio then. So we've got lots to talk about this week. I've still got to go and get my t-shirt changed because I'm an absolute idiot and forgot to do it before the stream started. Every week, literally every week. It's a busy week at work, I tell you. Right. First things first, the news. We'll start off with the news and then we'll get into all the fun stuff regarding all of the really cool, awesome things that happened. Carlo, first things first, neutrals. What do you think?
Neutrals. Interesting. I think we're starting to get to a point where where things can really be compared now. Like, we have decks that are supposed to play against each other and we can look at what they are to each other. We can look at units. We've seen enough that we can talk about neutrals by comparison to, Boltons, because that's what we saw. We saw Boltons. We can talk about Boltons by comparison to the Mummers that we saw in the past, and we can talk about Boltons in terms of neutrals versus some of the other units we've seen in the past.
I know, right?
And it's starting just to flesh itself out. And there's a lot of discussion there, less speculation, and more just analysis. So yeah, I think it's an interesting article.
Yeah. Deoxys, yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm just keen for the new stuff to finally come out, but overall, I'm still a fan. I'm liking all the new stuff they put out.
Okay. Should we break it down? Should we break down what we see? Should we break down all the stuff we see with the neutrals just quickly? Anything we do is slow, so everyone knows I'm lying when I say just quickly. We'll cover the tactics cards first of all, and I'm going to immediately start with a downer, right? It wouldn't be us if we didn't start with a downer. Carlo, the first card we see, Tack Approach. We saw it with Stannis Baratheon. It's a good card, but why is it called Tactical Approach when Stannis Baratheon's is a completely different card? Also,
Yeah.
Afternoon Blood Raven.
Same name, identical name,
Yeah.
totally different card. Like, this is just the kind of thing that, yeah, I thought of all the things that they were going to get right, that they'd been harping on about, that they've been saying, we're going to clean up the game. Number one, cleaning up the game. You can't have two cards called the same thing that do different things.
Yeah.
So, that was a sad one. That's a sad one. Not big fan of that.
Yeah. We've seen same card names do slightly different kicker effects, like you need to have like a different control of zone, and it does a slightly different secondary effect. But yeah, the main effect just being completely different trigger, everything just being a very different card.
They're just two different cards.
Yeah, and that's a shame because I really like Stannis' tack approach. I really like this tactical approach. But yeah, straight away was the first thing I read. But it's very similar to it's the old Wealth and Cunning, right? Basically, it's like a more toned down version of the old Wealth and Cunning.
Neutrals I haven't played in a while. I've played them before. I haven't played them in a while, and I haven't played against them in age. Almost nobody's fielding neutrals in any events that I've been in or anything like that. So I would say the old neutral deck is the deck that I'm most rusty on, being able to compare like what cards have gotten better or worse. But like I say, at least there's Baratheon cards, there's Greyjoy cards to kind of compare the deck to instead. So let's look at it in future terms as opposed to looking backwards.
Sure, yeah. So tactical approach, +1 hit, +1 defense die, depending on whatever you get the extra one if you control letters or if it's your commander's unit, which is cool. So 2 extra hits, 2 extra wounds. Someone should just rename it to Carlo is sad. That is true. Carlo is sad. So yeah, that's attack approach is an okay card. You know, just 2 extra hits or 1 extra hit or 2 extra defensive saves or 2 extra, 1 extra save. Yeah, they're okay. It's completely okay.
It's got one thing that I don't like. It's going to become, because it's a theme across the whole deck. I'm not a fan of them being all in on the letters zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think there's huge value in a deck which has 2 powerful zones. Being so entirely dependent on your kicker effects all being due to the letters means that it's such an obvious go-to for your opponent as their first take, because letters has good value for them and has huge denial at the same time. So I preferred it when they used to be letters and money bags. Like, it made sense, it seemed worthwhile, and it seems odd that, we've seen a couple of other decks and they still have 2 zones that they're dependent upon, and that the neutral deck is just all in on this one zone. I'm not a big fan of, and I think weakens the deck as a whole. It makes it more predictable and just, not as strong.
Yeah, I mean, losing the money bag synergy obviously loses some synergy with Stormcrows. Now, we haven't seen any new Stormcrows, so we can't really comment on what that means or what that doesn't mean as of yet. Deoxys, your thoughts on the 1 tactic zone combo? Not bother you? 1 NCU list coming in soon?
I think I'm gonna have to agree with. I preferred when it had the 2, and just first with that tactical approach, it had both zones had a benefit for you, so you've got a bit of redundancy, I guess, versatility in it.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting seeing it only move down to the 1. Alright then, adaptive methods is basically the same as the old adaptive methods. I think it's slightly better. It's not this anytime trigger, which was always been really contentious. So it's gotten a better... I think it's actually a better card because of that, even though it's probably a worse actual card. But it's a better card to have in the game, so... I think that's good. Basically the same though. Issue commands. This is something that I think a lot of Tyrion players are looking at. This looks like very similar to what was Cunning Ploy, right? And is probably looking at what Tyrion will look at as a new Cunning Ploy, this issue commands card, which actually is not. It's not terrible. You replace the commander's action with a attack or charge on someone else. I like that. It's not this completely you just take my activation and do it, which is just a bit obscene. And we've seen that on multiple occasions, and everyone knows the strength of Tyrion lists. Not much else to say on that.
Yeah, it's not the same power level that Tyrion used to have. The making it just give an attack or charge action is very important for cavalry. There's not going to be any free cavalry maneuver based off of this. At the moment, we believe that all commanders are infantry inside of neutrals. So the way this card currently works, you could only ever use it on an infantry unit. So there's going to be no discussion about whether or not you have to give up the cavalry move as part of the action, or if you give up an action. And like there was this whole thing with Tyrion because of who it can be used on. I think that it's effectively just a slightly constrained version of it, which is probably best because Tyrion was well known to be one of the both most powerful, but also kind of like one of the most frustrating and negative play experiences for opponents of Tyrion. So I think that it's a better version of the same effect, and I think that it'll be good and fine in play, and interesting that neutrals have it just there in their base deck.
Yeah, definitely. Deoxys, you've not played any Tyrion, have you? Because you haven't basically played anything powerful for the last 8 years except Starks, right?
Yeah, sure. I've never actually got into the Tyrion. I'd always leaned towards the High Sparrow. I just couldn't get my head around it back when I started. But again, I agree with this card. It's sort of toned down a bit. You got the limitation you can only do it once. You've got a range limitation. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I think the next one, I can't, for some reason in my head, there was a card called Worth the Reward, and now it's Worth the Risk, but I don't even know if that's true. Don't quote me on that. But we got Worth the Risk now, which is you re-roll panic dice or you auto pass if it's within short range of the commander. This is just an okay card, right? Nothing wrong with this. Panic damage has gone down, so this is de facto slightly less important. But there are, of course, stuff that gives you this kind of like massive combo modifiers and extra wounds on top, right? Lannister Guardsman, for example.
Yeah.
So having a card like this in the deck, I think is actually a good card nowadays. I think it's a situationally good card, which makes it a good card because you can always use it, but there are situations.
The commanders.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
from these cards.
That's a good point.
The Baratheon ones, they don't seem to have any of them on their base deck. They've got what 3 here.
Yeah, there's 3 commander base. So yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Bolton's neutrals being revolving around the commander is going to be an interesting idea. We even see it with meticulous planning. The old Mance Raider card, we saw it in neutrals as well. But now it's you end of round, you search a tactics card to bring a certain commander card into your hand. Or if you control letters, you can do it at any turn. So this is actually a really strong card now, I think, because it has that any time. You don't discard another card trigger, which was ridiculous. You discard 2 cards from your hand, this and something else, and search for 1 card. But yeah, it's I really like meticulous planning, the new one. I like this idea. You control a zone and you can do it at the start of any turn rather than at the end of a round. So yeah, I like that combo, but I don't think there's much to say about that. Of course, it depends on how strong the commander card's on, which we'll get to in a second. Surprise strat.
I think it's pretty weak at the end of the round, right? Like
yeah, it is.
Like swapping out a card when for next round. Oh right, okay, you know what's going to come, and maybe you want to do something at the start of next round. But we'll come on to him in a minute. But like Ramsay's gotten rid of his like at the start of a round 3 attack.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to be diving for a card like that. Really, you want letters to empower this. When you empower it and grab a card whenever you want mid-round, it's very, very powerful. Pretty underwhelming at the end of the round, which is fine. But like I say, we're back to that part of it's going to be very, very important to get control of letters or to deny letters against neutrals.
Yep, definitely. I think there's unless you've got anything to say, Doxies.
No, that's pretty much it covered, I think.
Nailed it. So, surprise strat next. We've seen surprise strat before. We see it on Courtney, obviously, at the moment. This is obviously a slightly newer version. And it's completely different. It is completely different. And it no longer has this denial effect, right? You only do the restore a card to your hand from the discard pile. There's the key, from the discard. And you have to pay a card to do it as well as this card. Alternatively, you have the kicker. If you have the kicker, you only pay the card that you play. That's an objective buff with the kicker. That's a really good straight up improvement. But not having that, you can't play tactics cards this turn. Wow.
Yeah.
This like I guess hard control, hard denial style that they've usually had in the past. They've genuinely just said nope.
I wonder what they're going to do to counterplot.
Yeah, that's a good point because we haven't seen counterplot yet, have we? In any of the new reveals?
No.
Stopping other people playing their stuff. So yeah.
Maybe that would be the. I do think that Lannisters should probably keep counterplot. I think it plays into what Lannisters have always done. But I agree that counterplot. I mean, there were 3 variants of counterplot at the end.
Yeah. I think it became a bit liberal. Like it was that Oprah meme of you get counterplot, you get counterplot for everybody. Whereas it seemed to have like real value and identity to the Lannisters when it was only them.
Mm-hmm. Do you think as well that this is a slight sign that winter is coming? Winter is no longer coming.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's that would be good, wouldn't it?
Winter is coming can't exist in its current form going forward. Otherwise, we're just going to talk about the Starks just having things that everybody else doesn't have. Again. Still, again, here we say.
We've been there before, haven't we, Deoxys?
We have.
We'll get onto that later on. There's a Stark discussion coming up later on, and we'll be very Stark with it. Puns in there somewhere. Right, Spoils of War coming in next. Spoils of War completely changed. I believe it was that you used to get Lord of Healing, right? Whereas now we have this insanely good card, actually. When a friendly unit dies, you get a token on. So you need this to be in play first. There's a key. With one token, you get reroll attack dice, and you become vulnerable on every attack. And on 2 dice, you also get 2 tokens. You also get an extra +1 to hit. So you get this kind of like double whammy where if 2 friendly units die within short range, so you have to be quite close, you can get these buffs. I think this is a really good card, except for the fact that it's so draw dependent.
Yeah, there's no reason or game or whatever. This is the one issue I have with this whole style of card. This seems to be the new this is the new way that they put in cards that are when a unit is destroyed, right? They've decided that this isn't something that you hold in your hand for the whole game and wait for this unit to be destroyed. And of course, neutrals in the past, they always had it as when you destroy an opponent instead of when you are destroyed. They were the one unique faction who sort of like flipped that on its head. I think Free Folks is totally different as well. Like you could consider Endless Horde as their version of it, but
yeah,
pretty much everybody else had a when I'm destroyed, this thing happens. Here's my trigger, and they've moved it to start a friendly turn. You're gonna have to prepare for that trigger, but you trigger the card early on in the game. My issue with all of the cards under that mechanism is there's no reason you don't want them in your starting hand. Like your hand, your game, your tactics deck is just better if you draw them in a dead round where there's going to be no combat, as long as you have any ability to predict like what's going to happen on the table, what units are going to die, which ones are going to survive, which ones you're going to be aggressive with. So, you know, I think that Spoils of War is a brilliant card. I just don't like the fact that I always want to see it in my starting hand. And I will feel annoyed if I draw 3 cards, play letters, end up with 5 cards, and I haven't got it. You know, I'd be like, I've been done over here if I didn't get Spoils of War in any of those.
I agree. Doxies, your thoughts?
Yep, agree too. But I guess you got the surprise strategy. Just another chance to get it. But it's really toned down again. A whole kill just to get a vulnerable token. Not that a vulnerable token is bad, but you got to kill a unit just to be able to get that out. Or get the effects of it, rather.
The other thing is as well, I feel like this is... it's Rattle Shirt, right? For those of you who aren't aware, whenever it's a Rattle Shirt, used to be on the field as your commander. You kill a rank and you can play one of his cards on a unit and things like that. Rattle Shirt is objectively the worst Free Folk commander now. Anyone who plays Free Folk will know that the simple fact of the matter is there are at least 2 better options than him, if not 4. And that's nothing to do with the rankings that we see on stats, right? It's just purely through play rate alone you can tell that Rattle Shirt is just not objectively very good. This feels like a very Rattle Shirty card, right?
Yeah.
And Rattle Shirt...
takes a lot of setup, doesn't give that much reward.
No.
But, you know, like, when you've got it, you're like, okay, I'll play it because, well, obviously I'm going to play it. But, like, you're a bit like, I wish it gave me more for the amount that I've had to get this to work. So,
but
yeah, you know.
You can play it.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait till it's destroyed. That's I guess,
exactly
the one.
If you had to wait for its trigger, it would probably be mostly discarded in favor of a better card. But because you don't, it's just free cycling of the deck, and when it procs, it will be useful. You know, being able to make Defender vulnerable could be pretty powerful on Flayed Men. I think I think we're going to come on to them, but I think they have a good spot for it.
And +1 to hit's never a bad thing when things like mummers exist, right? So,
yeah.
So yeah. All right, we'll move on to Ramsey then. And Ramsey, I'm just going to straight up say this. Check out his cards properly, but he's been gutted, right? they took away all of Ramsey's good cards and gave him actually the thing is his cards aren't bad, right? His cards now are not so dependent on so many things. He gets to a lot of choice and a lot of like kind of like options with what he does. But they're not great. They're simply not great. They're just good.
They're not as impactful as they used to be. He used to have huge explosive potential, and now he's doing smaller, more reliable things, which is what we're doing with all tactics cards. All tactics cards are less game defining than they used to be, but that hurts Ramsey, because Ramsey's one ability used to be that when he exploded big, he really did explode big. So you know, a bit sad for him. You know, he had a niche use in a few armies.
Definitely. I don't know. I think he's good. I think he's still okay. That's the thing. I think he's still okay. His cards.
He's fine. He's fine. I don't see him being, you know, I don't see this setup being top tier. If this is top tier, then they've done really, really well to compress all the commanders into not having a huge effect on the game anymore. But they talk a lot about how they want armies to be defined by their commanders. I just don't see anybody being defined by this set of rules and this set of cards.
There is one thing. He has a card that just straight up gives precision. Yeah, sure, you have to be panicked, but he has cards that give out panic. He has a card that gives precision. And precision is a tool lacking in a rest of the faction, pretty much. But it is a tool that's really good against those kind of like mammoths, against specifically giants, even stag knights now with the resilience order that they've got. So I think it's not a bad, like, he's not bad by any stretch. He's just not amazing. I think he's like straight up middle tier. And as you say, if that's going to be like the average, and everything kind of resolves around this, that's actually not too bad. You know. Cool. The units. I'm just bringing up all the units on the screen there. The only points change we see is the Flayed Men coming down from 9 to 8. Going back to where they were, right? They used to be 8, then they went up, then they dropped, and then they've dropped again. Everything...
They were 10 once upon a time.
They did go up to 10, right?
And then they were 8, and then they were 9, and now they're 8. They're all over the show.
Yeah. They're actually not much different to what they were. They get the crit blow back on the charge, and they get this intimidating presence, which is basically returning back to normal panic, but with an extra -1. So they've got what we're now referring to as super vicious, right? -3.
Yeah.
On a morale check. Which
all
is,
the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Just all the time.
Powerful.
Yeah.
And it feels themey to me. Being Boltons.
It does.
Yeah.
Actually. Then we move on to Bastard Girls. So, but I mean,
no, come on,
no. Afternoon,
come on
Brett.
now. You
Afternoon,
can't just leave it
Carl.
at that.
No, right? Okay, go on then. Well, go on, Carlo. You want to have a little bit of a say about Flayed Men, can't you? You do actually. I know you want to.
They lost an attack. All right, they lost an attack. They went from 7 to 5, but I'm a little bit concerned. They gained crit blow on the charge. Pretty important. Their panic damage didn't change. Their profile is only different in that 7 and 5 become are down from what was 8 and 6. Crit blow will pretty much give them that hit back, and they dropped a whole point. They've gone down a whole point, right? So they're now the same points cost that Knights of Castle Rock used to be. Knights of Castle Rock were already considered just like too cheap for what they did, and were basically one of the 2 crutches that Lannisters were holding themselves up on. So I think that Flayed Men are going to be everywhere, unless Zorses are so good that people take Zorses instead, which is possible. But either your own Knights of Castle Rock, Tully Cavaliers, you know, Champions of the Stag, Targaryen, you know, Dothraki Screamers, unless all of these units are better than Flayed Men are going to be everywhere because they're really, really powerful for 8 points. They're powerful in the current game at 8 points, And everything else we see is powerful, aggressive units aren't as powerful and aggressive anymore. And these guys are more powerful, more aggressive, and cost less points. I can't see the logic. I can't see what brings them to that conclusion. Anybody want to tell me?
Deoxys, I mean, do you have any more insight, or are you on the Carlo thought train here of just like they're really good?
I do agree. It's we'll see it when we get to the other unit. Go, they made some interesting changes.
Yes. Obviously, it is worth pointing out 8 points in the new way that they look like they've kind of like ordered things and pointed things. It does look like 8 points is supposed to be good. And also, we have yet to see anything over 8 points, right? Nothing in the game we've seen so far is base level over 8 points. And anything that we did see that was 8 points has been reduced. E.g., Flayed Men. Will we see 9 or 10 point units? Don't know. Maybe dragons staying at 9 might be the only unit that we see at 9 points, which actually thematically makes sense. They should be the most powerful. Even a youngling dragon should still be one of the most powerful units in the game. So, we move on to the Bastard Girls, and this is where I'm literally just confused. Yeah, I am literally just like...
Excuse me,
like, what? You know, so let's run through the buffs.
I don't know.
+1 movement. Yeah. We also have +1 attack dice on, I think it's like the, is it +1 attack dice on like the last row or something of Blade and Fang? It's like something really inconsequential or something.
3663.
Yeah. And Tracker's Bow, no longer is this roll a 1, become vulnerable. It's just you always become vulnerable after the attack. And I think that's it, isn't it? So we've got the 3 buffs. Now, one of them, last dice on last rank, is probably not a big deal. No one really cares about that. But +1 movement on a ranged unit that can charge, that's good. Tracker's Bow, always giving vulnerable after the attack, that's good. Those are direct buffs. Same points cost. They were already picked in every faction that could take them reasonably.
Yeah, I don't know if I care. So I'll tell you what I think. The only thing that I think's ever mattered to Bolton Bastard Girls is, do you have an attachment that turns them from very good through to crazy ridiculous?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the issue is going to be anybody who does have an attachment which works and continues to really enhance both of these attacks, or has particular ways to use that vulnerable, which they're always generating, or just loves tokens or something like that, then yes, absolutely, this is totally the wrong move. Oddly enough, in isolation, I don't think that Bolton Bastard Girls are like broken at 7. The thing is that there's currently a ton of combos at 8 or with a commander at 7, which are just, not nice to play against. If those combos still exist, then Bolton Bastard Girls are just a bit ridiculous.
Kindly reminder, Stannis gives out a token at long range and has the old tack approach. Stannis Bolton Bastard Girls was already considered this kind of ridiculous powerhouse, and games hinged on this combo. This combo just got better because you can guarantee that vulnerable on the second attack. Like, I don't know. They made one combo which was already really good better. They haven't made it any more reliable, which means it's still this unreliable but ridiculously OP thing. When it happens, it was just really good. So whether or not we just see that again, I don't know. Let's have a look at the chat, because loads of people have been... It's gotten really busy all of a sudden. So what happens when you do one more Discord share? Everyone flocks to you. Didn't know we get another busy. All these things matter. All these things matter. All these things matter. This is just a generally good statement. What do you think of the guys' deck overall? Go back and watch it, Carl. We thought the deck was okay. Not amazing. Okay. So buffed, it's insane. Almost everyone can take them. Yeah. Patron is going to go so well in them. Preston, sorry, 3 card draws per turn. Yeah, that's a thing. Dan can already note in the 3 card draw. Because you can remove the order tokens. We forgot about that. One of the cards allows the order token to be removed because everyone likes being charging volleyed twice in a round. Yep. Bold to assume Preston stays the same. Oh, Brett dangling that carrot. But it's true. We don't actually know if he will. There's no guarantee. All right. So we move on to the Blackguards. Thoughts, opinions. They basically just didn't do anything with this unit, right?
No, they did.
No, they got the new version.
Vicious.
Oh, they didn't have Vicious. Yeah, that was the insane thing. They never used to have Vicious, which always used to confuse me. I always assumed they had Vicious, and then whenever I saw them on the field and they didn't, I always got confused. Yeah, but yeah, they fixed that, and they get the new version of Horrific Visage, right? Which is kind of like a assumption we'd already kind of made, given we'd already seen that kind of change. Any thoughts on that, or is it just kind of like, yeah, good defensive unit for 6, happy days?
That Horrific Visage is much better. It seems way more relevant now. Actually usable. Half the time before it's just, oh yeah, I forgot about it. I don't care. I'll do it now. Oh look, nothing happened.
Yeah. What I like about the Horrific Visage is it will blunt the initial assault because it's minus per rank, and you'll always be on like 3 ranks you'd assume to start with, unless of course they get shot, which we'll come on to later on. Yeah, love it. As Deoxys said, I think it's a good change.
This is positive. This is the kind of change I expected to see. Unit slightly underrepresented, given small buff. That's the kind of step incremental change I want us to be implementing. Let's have a look and see how powerful they are, how good they are for the next 3 months. And then we can look at whether or not there's anything wrong with them. Just give them a tiny another little nudge this way, that way, up their attack profile, down their attack profile, because they're getting used too much, too little, winning too much, too little. But that's a single unique case. Everything else, I'm like, how much did they change? Did they understand its old role? Like, it's totally got a new role. How did they balance its new role versus all these other units that are changing? Like, whoa, too much is going on here at once. This unit, I'm like, yeah, that's good. This unit didn't see a lot of play. I think by de facto, the game, the direction it's moving into being less aggressive, meant that they were already a slightly more viable choice. Add in the fact that they've now got Vicious. That was just the kind of buff that I think that this unit is probably just about right now.
Yeah. No, I look at that unit, and for 6 points, I think, you know what? That's a good defensive unit. It's not your 5-point standard kind of like aggressive, kind of like semi-mediocre kind of thing. It's a 6-point unit that you're paying for a defensive ability, and you're paying for a unit that you think is going to sustain, while also actually having some damage output in the back, which is good. You know? I think it's fine. I agree. I think for 6 point, I would call that almost as a benchmark 6-point unit. I always thought that the old Blackguards were actually not a bad, like, staple 6-point unit, bad benchmark. They were not far away from what I would call a good benchmark unit. And now I look at them and think, you know what? As a 6-point unit, I think that's still good benchmark.
Yeah.
So
people
I think
were saying, ever since the Blackguard came first out, everybody just said, just give them Vicious and they're fine. Give them Vicious and they're absolutely in a place where I'll take them but not spam them. I'll maybe put my commander in them. Maybe I'll put an attachment in them. Maybe I'll take them by themselves. They're completely self-sustained. They do all these things. Give them Vicious. And they have. And, you know, some of the things have changed. Visage has changed. The game is changing subtly. But all they needed was the Vicious, and I'm quite happy about it.
Yeah. And then we move on to Cutthroats. Now, Carlo, I'm going to give this straight to you because you did a breakdown on this, actually, didn't you? You were telling me yesterday, I think Deoxys, you were telling Deoxys this as well. So me and Deoxys are going to just wait for you to say some stuff. Deoxys is going to prove you wrong, and then I'm going to move on. So, go on then, Carlo. Start us off.
I mean, where do you start with Cutthroats, right? Okay, let's list the number of things that have been changed, but they're all nerfed. So, like, how many things have been nerfed? So, we've lost an attack on our highest rank. Okay, we didn't lose it on the others, but okay. Still a minor nerf. 8 attack profile at max ranks has gone down to 7. Way more important, we've gone to a 4+ to hit. Something that people have been calling for a long time. That's pretty big on this unit. Vicious, is now de facto not as good because you do 1 less wound with all vicious. And now when you attack somebody that has not activated, you re-roll attack dice. This, I'm sorry, is nowhere near as good as giving out a vulnerable token because there are tons of ways to re-roll attacks, whereas being able to force through that vulnerable damage on demand is so much more important. Now, I mean, we're at what, 4 nerfs? Right?
3 to 4, yeah.
Yeah. I think at absolute most, this unit needed 2 of them. 2 of them. You know, like, this unit was spammed. It was a bit of an issue for the game, but you have to understand what its role was. And that was that on the charge, late in the round, it could expect to do 5 wounds plus a panic check, then activate next round, attack as the first activation, and most things around a 4+ save, mediocre morale, i.e., anything in the whole game in its own points value category could not stand up to this attacking them twice. And therefore, if you spammed enough of them, you had activation advantage and you could double tap somebody and double down your activation advantage, get ahead, swing forward. You used to be doing like 5 point something wounds on the charge. Now you're doing 2.6, right? You've got less than half as much damage. Panic damage is reduced. This unit is now got no spike damage, no sustain, nothing good about it. I think that they've just hit this unit, like they've just looked and seen, oh, everybody uses cutthroats and complains about them. All right, just hit it with everything. Hit it with the broad stroke of every small nerf we can think of without understanding what was making them so powerful. I'm really don't think cutthroats are going to see any play in any army from now on.
Not the only one to say that either. And yeah, I agree. It's what we refer to, and I've spoken this with a lot of people. Root cause analysis, right? Just because there was some problems with this unit doesn't mean that this unit was the problem. This unit has problems, and part of the 5-point unit activation spam style created problems. But this unit wasn't necessarily the source of it. And as we saw as the meta developed and we move into the World Cup, yes, there were a hell of a lot less neutral players, but generally speaking, these were not picked that often. The pick rate had dropped dramatically because the meta had evolved beyond the point where these had become useful, because there were other things that did the job even better. This unit now just looks objectively bad across its point value. Now, we haven't seen that many 5-point units, but it just doesn't look good.
No.
And we basically have seen Starksworn Swords in the rulebook. We haven't seen everything, but we have basically seen Starksworn Swords, and I think these are worse. So
I'll tell you what we have seen, and I think is a horrific comparison. This unit versus Lannister Guardsmen, who we've seen, they cannot go anywhere near toe-to-toe with Lannister Guardsmen, right? Like, they don't touch them at all. They are, I think they're going to match up very, very poorly into nearly every other 5-point unit in the game. And that's sad because that is a massive over nerf just because something was slightly above the curve.
Mm-hmm. Also means neutrals won't be able to run 5-point units, which, if anyone knows about activation advantage in a game like A Song of Ice and Fire, that might be an issue. Deoxys, how are you feeling on this one?
Yeah, well, maybe that's what they're going for with that nerf to reduce that spam, but that's a huge nerf, like you say. I agree. I can't see them going toe to toe with any of the other 5 points. Even the attachments don't seem to make them worth it. They're not really helping them out. At this point, you're just better off putting them into more flayed men and just using those points elsewhere.
Yeah. Take the hit. Take the flayed men. And we'll move on to the attachments.
I don't see anyone using cutthroats.
Yeah, no cutthroats anymore. The attachments then, this confused the life out of me, and I'll get back to this, and I even spoke with a couple of people who are quite involved in the process, and they were also confused. So we saw Ramsey Commander, we've seen him, House Bolton affiliation makes sense, he brings Horrific Visage, great, some people saying with Mummers this could be really obscene, other things. I don't think this is obscene, to be honest. I think it's take a commander, have one good ability, yeah, there might be some double down with Mummers, which could be really good. But I think the problem there is not Horrific Visage, right? The problem there is the base level of Mummers. Nothing to do with Horrific Visage. Ramsey 2-point, Fueled by Slaughter, which is what we see on the new Warsworn from Greyjoys. Great, and also brings the Intimidating Presence. I like that. For a 2-point attachment, 2 abilities, both focusing around that panic style of thing. Panic and healing, right? Great. I'm happy with that. Fits the theme. I don't know if it's good for 2 points, so we'll have to wait and see. Depends on how good attachments are. Linked with Ramsey, though, we see Theon at 1 point, so he's no longer free. You have to pay for him, which is good, because I think it was weird that he was like in with the cost before, but you would never not take him. I don't know. Would you take this guy?
I see. That's the thing. At 1 point, I don't know if I want to take him. He's really on the verge. Like he is very empowering to Ramsey's cards. Ramsey is very reliant on that panic. You know, he's possibly better. He does it to all enemies in short instead of one enemy within long. He only dies half the time now. There seems to be less downsides, slightly more upsides, but the downside massively is it costs you 1 point. I find that really odd because it feels like an unnecessary tax on Commander Ramsey. Commander Ramsey doesn't feel to me like he brings enough that you would then be like, yes, I'm so happy to pay 1 point for this attachment, which empowers him to do all the things that he needs to do. Like, his cards aren't like, oh my god, if I just had Theon, this is an amazing card. It's like, okay, I need Theon for this card to be worth anything at all. So I think it's a hard sell for the commander particularly, and nobody really was using Ramsey at 3 points, so he's still 3 points. I don't know. I think he's 1 point too many.
I
really do.
Deoxys will probably share my thoughts on this one. Going back to the Weeper that we saw for 2 points, the Weeper pays a wound and does exactly the same thing, right? The difference is Weeper for another point brings Vicious as well. Now, would I pay 2 points for Vicious and this ability? No. Like, this ability, people are already saying, I wouldn't pay 1 point for this. And people are then saying you pay 2 points for Vicious and you do a wound on top of this, but okay, you can't lose the ability. You don't roll a 6 and then you lose a wound. It's just auto lose a wound. No, I'm not going to do that either. Like, for me, this ability, because it's start of any turn, actually on the times where it matters the most, when you want to be aggressive, sure, it's great. But even then, if you're in short range all the time of a unit, then what you're talking about is guaranteed charges all the time, which is the way people play.
Yeah.
But then people will just sit at 7 inches and be like, right, I've got a 6-inch movement unit and I'll just auto charge you still.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter in the situations where
it's going to be used. I think that it was more powerful as a long range 1 unit effect rather than everybody within short.
Yeah. I agree.
But maybe at his cards, I think I'd actually look at be taking him almost all the time. You've got letters to put out your panic, and sadistic games, your opponent does get to choose that panic, and his other 2 cards seem, one of them you have to have you don't have to have a panic, but to get the most effects out of it, you do. The other one, you do need the panic. So if you've only got that one option through letters, so far I think you kind of need him.
So I agree. I really do agree that he's almost worth a point with Ramsey, or maybe he is worth a point with Ramsey. But is that whole package of Ramsey as a commander bringing those cards worth you having to pay a point for Theon? Or have you just been mugged off because your commander costs 1 point and everybody else's is free?
Maybe it's focusing on, again, they want you to take the attachments. They're funneling down that route. They want you to have the attachments in the units. So to even take it, you have to really consider him.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. It's definitely something worth thinking about. And the thing is, I don't think it's a complete... We can't tell until the game is fully out, right? We can't tell until we start playing games whether or not Theon's going to be worth it. That's the hard bit. Then we move on to the most kind of like confusing thing I've ever seen. I mean, I've seen Simon name a card 2 different names and be it's the same name and be 2 different things. Now what they've done is they've taken the Bolton player and they've taken the Dreadfort captain, and they went, you know what? Wouldn't it be better if the Bolton Flayer had Spread Fear, which is basically what the Dreadfort captain used to do, except it's the new version of Spread Fear, not the old one where you just hand out a panic token. And the Bolton Flayer, who's got Prey on Fear, why don't we give his ability to the Dreadfort captain? Thematically, it might make sense. Maybe. I don't know. The point is, why? They literally just swapped the abilities, and sure, one of the abilities has changed.
Did Michael want that ability on his card?
I think so, because it seems better.
Michael wanted to be on the card that gets used. Because nobody's been using Dreadfort captains for ages.
No, they haven't. No.
And now with the odd Flayer here and there.
I just... The thing is, like, it feels like it's a change they've wanted to make. I get the Spread Fear idea, like you flay somebody with this panic test that you've managed to make them fail, and that's scary, right? I guess the theme makes a bit more sense. I don't know why the Dreadfort captain makes you heal. I don't get that. But the point is that they literally pay. They've in my opinion, they've wasted money here because they had. I've got we've all got cards if we've got neutrals that are perfectly functioning right now as Dreadfort captains and Bolton Flayers, and instead of having one that updates, we've now got both that have changed for no reason. I don't know why. And some people say
update them anyway, so it said 2021 down in the corner anyway. So
yeah.
You know, right.
Some people said this here. They go better with the units they come in, right? No, they don't.
Yeah.
The Dreadfort captain.
I was already trying to consider that.
The Dreadfort captain comes with the Cutthroats, right? And the Bolton Flayer comes with, Blackguards.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely, the opposite way round would be better. I would rather have Prey on Fear in Blackguard, and I would rather have Spread Fear in my Cutthroats.
Mm-hmm. Aggressive unit that comes in, does loads of damage, AoE, boom. Blackguards who just stand there and tank all day. Happy days. If you attack me, I might heal.
If
they explain that they think that they should be the opposite way around, then I don't know what they think those units do.
I don't know, synergies.
Very weird.
Yeah. But there we go. There's the end of that one. That last one did confuse me. I'm glad they've updated Spread on Fear, but that really just confused me. And if that was their justification, then that actually doesn't make me any happier because it's a bad one. So yeah, neutrals. There we go. Interesting nonetheless. Overall takes, Carlo.
If neutrals are powerful, it's because they have some undercosted units which are overpowered. Right now, that looks like it could be Bolton Bastard Girls, Flayed Men, and Zorse Riders, and Skirmishers from what we've seen. And if the idea is that the tax on other armies is that they can only afford 20 points of neutrals, then they've flip-reversed the idea of what neutrals are, because the idea used to be that neutrals had a very, very powerful tactics deck, which made up for the fact that they had less choice. Whereas right now, it feels like they have some of the most powerful units and a pretty mediocre to weak tactics deck. I'm not seeing a lot in it. I'm not saying I've seen a tactics deck, which I'm over the moon about and think is better. I just don't think that this one brings significantly large amounts to the game. If neutrals are powerful, it's because you can spam the same unit over and over again. And the problem with that is every other army will be spamming them up to the 20-point limit anyway, the 50% limit, whatever, people do play at things other than 40 points. And I think that that's a big design philosophy problem. So I have to hope that neutrals aren't powerful. If neutrals are powerful, then I think it's going to be very bad for the game because it's based on a few units being undercosted.
Doxies, your final thoughts?
Yeah, ups and downs, right? I'll have to see when everything else comes out. But yeah, some things going up in effectiveness, some going down. I'm not sure what to think about it yet. I'll have to wait to see more.
Fair enough.
Don't you know Deoxys is supposed to come on here with wild speculation, throw down, and have an argument with me? Nobody wants none of this. We'll wait and see.
You're wrong.
Nobody wants a measured response. That's not what they come for.
Yeah, I mean, they've justified it here, saying that
Sorry to disappoint everyone. That's what I'm here for.
I have just finally read the article properly because I don't often read a lot of the stuff at the bottom, which I probably should. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It depends how I feel when the article comes out. But this one, it does say that the captain aids the cutthroats in the area they suffer the most in survivability, and the Flayer, in specific combination horrific visage, makes the Blackguard a truly scary support unit. Oh well. I think they're wrong. But...
He says we felt that the abilities matched the inverted commas personality of the attachments better. That feels very much like literally, they're leaning too heavily into the fact that this is an alt sculpt Michael.
Is Michael.
Feels very much like Michael wanted that ability on his card.
Yeah.
Does that mean Michael wants the Proud Fear?
Oh dear, probably.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually the kind of thing that Michael Chanel would do. So one other thing I wanted to do news-wise, and I wanted to give him a shout-out, and I know that loads of other community content creators do stuff on these guys. I mean, it's not even a joke. Within seconds of this coming out, I think the other big community video makers had already done interviews with him because they thought it was amazing, and that's what they need to do. You know us, we don't do that. We don't race to the start. We just give ourselves a measured view of when things come out. But give that's just
one
how
way
we
of
are.
saying nobody wants to talk to us, Mickey.
That's true. No one does want to. Well, no, we don't try to talk to them. It's different. So the big difference is. I wanted to give him a shout out though. Boardman Games, the House Aaron fan made thing that he made. It's really detailed. It seems like he's balanced it for 2021 rules roughly. It's a lot of work. Not my thing. I looked at it and I thought I think there's a lot of issues with it personally in terms of balance and other things. But my point is that it's still a whole new faction that you can go and test out in your own games, have fun playing, and that in itself is nothing you can ever shout bad about a game. Community contributors like that, spot on. 100% keep it going.
It's phenomenal quality production. Honestly, I looked at it and I was like, whoa, where did this artwork come from? How good are your photoshopping skills to make this all look like it? It looks like an official product. You could easily be pushing out fakes if you wanted, and people would be eating them up and thinking that they were real. So yeah, I haven't looked to I am of the same boat, which is it's not for me. Homebrew rules have never been something I've been interested in. No matter what the game is, as soon as my gaming group say, "Oh, let's start homebrewing this," I'm like, "No, please don't change the rules. If the game makers can't make good rules, then let's play a different game." But it is the best homebrew that I've seen for a Song of Ice and Fire.
Nope. Looks like we lost Carlo there for a second.
End of. So big props on that.
Yeah, no, definitely. 100%. 100%. And I can't ever fault.
Wasn't interesting enough. No.
I can't ever fault somebody who puts that much effort and that much work into anything. And yes, it's not for me. Yes, I think personally I look at it and think, oh, I don't like that. But that doesn't mean it's bad by any stretch, right? Don't take my opinion as the opinion of everybody. Don't take my opinion as opinion you should even have. My opinion is my opinion. Carlo's opinion is his opinion. We're not trying to sway you. We're just trying to tell you that information. 100% go check it out because it might be right up your street. It might be perfect. You know what? I can imagine actually running a campaign with these guys, and a campaign like a homebrew campaign style with this faction in the game would be phenomenal. Use these guys instead of neutrals maybe to balance out the regions on like a map. So Jesse, I know that you're doing a campaign. I think it would be awesome if you include these, even if they might be broken or underpowered. Just use them. Go for it. So yeah, check that out.
Because the one thing that the Seven Kingdoms map needs is more factions crushed into the northern part of the map.
Definitely. Well,
What we
actually,
actually desperately need is we need Martells and we need Tyrells to like build out the map in a way that you can actually play it. That's what we really need. So
the point I was
you
going
know,
to make is you could just start scrapping off like Targaryens and Free Folk and add in the custom factions instead, and then have a much closer zoomed in, but still having the variety of armies. Hey, what do you think about these things? Deoxys, your opinion of homebrew?
Yeah, it's good work, I guess. I haven't actually looked at the units, but I did see the pictures, and at first glance I thought they were legit. So again, well done on the editing. But yeah, it's all good stuff to see it evolve and have other people do it. I heard it's legal in the finals, right, Carlo?
Not quite. You can have Greyjoys. I allowed them.
Right, so there we go. House Aaron. Check it out. I recommend it. Fully check it out. It is really good. So we move on to the actual focus of today's article. Focus of today's news. It is the World Cup finals have now been decided. The regionals are over. So, Carlo, we'll start with Europe while we've got Deoxys, because I know that he might randomly pass out with sleep deprivation at any moment. It must be now 7 o'clock in the morning for him after staying up all night. The EU finalist, the final game was me versus Deoxys, and Deoxys pounded me in a 10-1 absolute thrashing. The video is coming to YouTube. It's just being edited and things like that, but the video is coming to YouTube on the Northern Realms Gaming channel, so watch out for it there.
I did enjoy seeing you lose quite significantly, I have to say.
Did you also enjoy Starks drawing every possible answer to every possible question that they might ever be asked ever by any faction?
I did.
Well, you know, I thought it was a great game, and you know, I said it at the time, and I'll say it again. I think that Deoxys used the Q4 releases for Starks better than anybody else. Has adapted and moved the faction forward another 3 months, 4 months, while lots of people have just been saying that the game is stagnant, nothing's happening. You know, there are some releases which are creating some changes. Dragons are the most significant, but you know, I think that use of the Stormcrow Dervishes with that Cranigman Survivalist, if his name is right, is a very big power piece for the Starks. And yeah, I think you know, if you want to showcase, if you want to see what that unit can do, then what it can do includes destroying an entire Free Folk army by itself.
Pretty much, yeah. So yes, you know, Deoxys, you used it to great success. I'm not going to spend ages here being like, oh, you drew all the cards, oh, it was OP. I definitely made some misplays, certainly before I even went into the game, things like perhaps deployment. But coming first in the EU region, is EU just easy then?
How does it feel to be the best player in Europe?
Oh, it's great. I love my home continent of Europe. It's no, it was good. I enjoyed all my opponents. It was good to play a variety of factions. I did see the Free Folk though, very dominant here. But those Q4 releases, I think all of them have relevance. I do like the Mammoths makes a huge impact too. But even the turncoats, quite helpful.
Time and a place. Yeah, I definitely agree.
See any Lannisters come? I mean,
not
first Lannister in Europe though. Speaking of turncoats, first Lannister in Europe's 20th. You know.
Yeah, need Mountain that rides to become useful. I still think, or Tyrion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or both.
You got some pretty big flack from a lot of Lannister players by not including the Mountain. I know we spoke about it. Was it last week? I think we said you should just include it to make their win rate go up, and maybe they do well.
I did. Yeah.
Are you thinking about opening that up?
A lot of people basically decided now. You know, I think they're well on board with the idea that the Mountain that rides is hugely significantly important to their win rate and is overpowered as an individual piece. And they're mostly of the opinion that if we don't get given that overpowered thing, we're just not competitive, we're not viable. So, No, I have to say, the results semi-agree with it. The results say that Lannisters just aren't going to get picked, aren't going to win, aren't going to do well overall without him. So, I hope that he comes out soon. I hope that they at least announce Lannister Heroes 3, which is supposed to be, his release date. I hope that it comes out soon because I've been a long-time Lannister player. I haven't felt for a very long time that I can put him on the table in good conscience and believe that I'm, playing a balanced game.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. So we'll look at the stats. We did see there that there were 3 Free Folk player in the top 8. I believe the other one dropped out, but is quite close to the top 10 or something. I can't remember exactly where he ended now. But we see Free Folk with an overall win rate of 81%. Somewhat skewed Targaryen win rate of 80%. Only one Targaryen, Mother of Dragons, so obviously completely down to that individual. But then Starks at 60%, Baratheons at 55%, Lannisters and Night's Watch all the way down at 23%. With significant game played on the Lannisters, 26 game plays, and yet only 6 wins.
Bad times.
Bad times for Lannisters. Night's Watch, not great in Europe either. Baratheons did better than expected, but by no means did they do well. We saw both Baratheon players in the EU drop out of the top 8 that were on the road to potentially qualifying.
How many qualified?
Carlo was right. No Baratheons qualified in EU.
0?
0.
Okay, cool. Just checking.
Just checking. That Stark's obviously 59% win rate is going to happen. We've got to remember that when a faction gets picked more and more, 35% of the factions we see here are Stark. That is going to drive their win rate down because simply not everybody can be in the top half. And there'll be a mix of good players and bad players. Typically, when you see a faction picked by a smaller number of players, it's typically die-hard players that are picking that faction. Typically. Not always. They sometimes have a weird cult following of people who are not so great, who just fancy playing it for theme or for flavour, whatever. But typically the lower proportion number of players playing a faction, the more die-hard. Which is why I would go as far as saying Free Folk are where they are. You saw 4 Free Folk players, and I'm not trying to defend Free Folk here, but the 4 Free Folk players you saw doing really well are Leica, a French Free Folk player. He played Free Folk in the French Masters. He's a die-hard Free Folk player through and through. Next up, myself, in the end, coming 5th. I mean, everyone knows I've played Free Folk since Adair was born, right? Malleus from Slovenia, Free Folk diehard. The only one of those 4 players who's not a Free Folk diehard is Winter is Coming, Tom Tyler. And if anyone knows, he normally plays neutrals. So you give a neutral player something like Free Folk, it's like giving them in a whole candy store, right?
I'm going to interrupt your whole spiel about why the Free Folk players are the best players.
No. I'm just saying.
Why? Why are our Night's Watch diehards, almost none of them, entering? Only diehard Night's Watch players playing them. Why are those Night's Watch diehards winning 23% of their games and coming nowhere near qualification? Why are the Night's Watch doing so bad?
Yeah. I agree. But then, I mean, again, you got to look at Night's Watch. A lot of the players, I mean, I think Kolko was the highest forming Night's Watch. I've never seen him play Night's Watch before. I've only played against him playing Baratheons. And then Nubman and Scadman. Scadman was new to the scene. He's a completely new to TTS player. Self-admits it. He's playing for fun. Really enjoys it. And Nubman, one of the other guys from France. You've got to look at it. I mean, It's a small tournament. You've got to look at the individuals. You can't just say, it's a theme of the whole meta. But my point is that the diehards Night's Watch players weren't really there.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
They've all moved ship.
Slim pickings for the Night's Watch here in EU. We'll talk about NA in a minute, but
Lannister definitely.
It's not amazing for them there either. Night's Watch was a lot more open. EU in general, when you look down the list, we're talking 4 Starks, 3 Free Folk, and a Targaryen.
Yeah.
I think now. This is honestly, I haven't counted or checked or whatever. We were going to talk about predictions.
Sure.
I think I predicted 4 Starks, 3 Free Folk, and 1 Targaryen. Right? I don't think I probably didn't get 8 out of 8, but I think that was the factional pick that I went for.
So we'll go through Carlo
Did I
your
possibly
picks.
say one Night's Watch might qualify? Did I think a Night's Watch might get in?
Maybe three or four star.
You predicted in order. This is the well. This is not order because I alphabetized them, right? Bazonko in.
Yeah.
Chris Eustace. Let's forget about him. Deoxys.
Nope.
Larks. Masara. Me. Rossi. Winter is coming.
7 out of 8.
7 out of 8.
So
the only
I
person
got-
to let you out was Chris Eustace, who actually lost to Masara to unfortunately not get his spot. But he was replaced by Malleus.
So I picked one more Stark and instead got a free folk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is fairly reasonable in terms of, like, you know, predictions. I think that's a fairly reasonable thing to do. Interestingly, where is he? I'll find him on here. Pretty sure one.
Rossi says that the Night's Watch problem was because of the high Stark entries, and that's the hardest matchup for them.
It is.
Yeah, okay. I could agree. I could agree.
So, in terms of EU, we will just quickly look at this. I will quickly colour these in while you guys talk about EU as a whole. Oof. Yeah.
Can we just check again? How many of them were Baratheons?
0.
I have to ask you this as many times as possible because I'm about to get hammered by the fact that Baratheon won NA.
I know, right? I know, right? Baratheon winning NA.
Right. I'm going to double down. I'm going to double my bet down, which is absolutely 100%, even though he won the NA regional, our deep math does not win the finals, despite the fact that he is one of the 2 regional winners. He does not win the finals if he stays as Baratheons.
There you go. Double down. Challenge to Ray.
Anybody who switches to Baratheons will lose. No Baratheon will win the World Cup.
All right, everyone swap to Baratheon, all 16.
Let's go,
right.
everyone.
Everybody's gonna get together in a little club and say, let's play Baratheons, and then one person's gonna go back on it at the last second, and he's gonna wipe the floor with you if you all switch to Baratheons.
One person plays Mother of Dragons, and we're all like, oh no! Or one person just plays a mammoth
One
list.
MOD would beat 15 Baratheon entries. I'm telling you right now.
So, interestingly, it is in fact, right, a draw between who is best in EU. We had, unfortunately, I'll give them a shout out to all the people who did really well. Actually, we'll just go down for all the predictions. Sorry, all the predictions for EU. Brett with 3, Gamma with 4, Grusselug with 4, Weasel with 5, Chris Eustace and Open City with 6, Carlo with 7, which is good. It's good that you can predict things that are based on things, but also special guest Deoxys 7. Only losing out with his Morpheus
I know a secret bit of information, which is I'm pretty sure I know who Deoxys didn't think was going to get in. Oh, wait, am I thinking of the wrong person?
Who? Well, go on.
Was Deoxys the odd man out who said that Larks wouldn't make it?
No.
It wasn't me.
It was Brett.
Brett,
the man who got 3 predictions right. Brett did not predict Larks.
Brett did not predict Larks would make it.
No.
That's slight.
I think we have the same color. I didn't predict Malleus. I predicted another star. It was Morpheus comp.
Yeah, you predicted Morpheus comp. Malleus was only predicted by Chris Eustace. So a bit of a shout out to Elite Teddy. I know he's in chat, or as he was. So yeah, a bit of a shout out there because that was a good job on that prediction. But yeah, aside from that, Carlo 7 out of 7, 7 out of 8, and Deoxys 7 out of 8. Yeah.
The only way I can save any face from the fact that a Baratheon made it through was if my predictions are better than everybody else's, because that was my number 1 prediction. So we'll see what else comes of the NA.
Yeah, we will see what happens in NA. Also, prediction from Brett: 3 out of 8. Come on, Brett. Come on. You're supposed to be good at predicting.
Let's not throw any shade, because I think that I did pretty bad in NA, to be honest.
We'll see, won't we?
I think lots of people did.
Well, we'll see. Well, Ray didn't help, right? So we'll head over to NA now.
Yeah, point is I think that EU was, for me, obviously I got 7 out of 8. But I was picking based on I was picking purely based on lists. I was picking purely based on what I thought faction-wise would do well, and I found EU to be incredibly predictable. I think whether that's good or bad, we can talk about that as a whole different topic. But I thought I could see the way those matchups would go, and in the end, they pretty much went that way. And I think that is where we're at. Feels like where a lot of people have said where we're at for quite a while.
I do think, number of Starks entries and which people playing Starks at the end of the day is largely irrelevant. Free Folk, as we know, Free Folk are the best faction I think out there. I do think Free Folk are probably the best faction in terms of average. If you're a very skilled player and you pick up Free Folk, you will win the majority of games more than a Stark player will. However, as you might see, I think bad Stark players are bailed out by a deck. And good commanders, which we still have yet to see those really top two commanders make any drop whatsoever. Even though Starks have overall fallen, those two commanders are still absolutely punching above their weight. So it's still damning of those two Stark commanders and the deck that they have. I think the deck is oppressive, as Deoxys knows full well. How does it feel drawing double Sudden Charge, double Dev Impact, double Winter is Coming, and double Swift Advance within the first 6, 7, 8 cards in your hand or deck?
Oh, it feels bloody great.
Yeah.
Do you play much Free Folk, Deoxys?
Yeah, that's my first faction.
Do you think that Starks are more powerful?
If you know the enemy's deck and how they play, I think yes, they are.
So for you think that if you're entering this tournament to win, you think that Starks, for you at least, are the way to go. You think that Starks are your best chance at a whole win?
Yes, yeah. Just because of your ability to control the engagements, I think that really lends itself to getting the early lead and then capitalizing on it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that you could have won the regional with Free Folk, or do you feel that it was Starks that made you win?
I don't know about winning the regional with them, but I think I could have qualified. It would have mainly been to Mammoths for me, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I prefer having a more aggressive faction or units, and the Mammoth really lends itself to that. With normal raiders and stuff, you can win, but it just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
I don't feel
Fair
like
enough.
I'm using it.
I reckon I'd have beaten him in the mirror. But there we go.
Free Folk likes himself a bit of a Free Folk specialist, Free Folk mirror match specialist.
Still yet to lose one. Still yet to use one. It's come close. But anyway, no, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that, Doxy. It's interesting that you straight up say you prefer playing Free Folk, but you think that Starks are just an easier way to win. Which is interesting. NA then. Let's head over to NA, and we see, in case people aren't aware, Ray Ardeep Math from Indonesia won the regionals with Baratheons. We have Bolton Skincare Sunday Slaughter, the man himself, coming second with Free Folk. Zero Talk with Targaryens, which is, good. Of course, it's Mother of Dragons. Lord Commander Bob came 4th, Endline 5th, Claw 6th, and Brett 7th, and Tobbo Mott with the second Mother of Dragons coming in 8th. Rohan will be entering the finals. He is replacing Lord Commander Bob because Lord Commander Bob has a holiday and he has to take a week and a bit away, and as a result he doesn't want to commit to something that he doesn't know if he'll be able to play all his games in a timely manner. So he has dropped out, but he did qualify, so we'll look at the qualification spots as if it was Lord Commander Bob, but we'll be, obviously, he's effectively giving away his spot, although the seedings will change to Rohan.
So I can already tell you that I flat out said that no Baratheons would qualify, and I also said that no Lannisters would qualify.
Yeah.
So we see, it is actually interesting in NA. We see a Baratheon qualify, a Lannister qualify, a Night's Watch qualify, 1 Free Folk qualify, 2 Stark, 2 Targaryens. So much wider variety, much more eclectic mix. I would say better factional variety. It's the kind of thing that we want to see for good game balance. Does it represent that the game is in a better state. Well, they're playing the same game, so it's hard to say that. What it really represents is difference in player skill, right? Player
Small
skill
tournaments. Yeah.
is players are either the best players in America are not all drawn in NA, sorry, not just America. The best players in the NA regional are not all drawn to the same faction, which seems to be the case in Europe, that the best players are drawn towards Starks, the best players are drawn towards Free Folk.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It is definitely true. And I think that's what it says to me. And you look at the players that qualify. I've played against Zero Talk. I think I lost to him, or it was a very close game if I remember rightly. He's playing Baratheons if I remember rightly. I think when I played him. And I knew he was a good player back then. I think I played him in the 30-point league when I was playing Targaryens, it might have been. But yeah, he's a good player, or it might have been Down Under, I can't remember. He was a good player when I played him then. I thought he was getting into the game, he really enjoyed it. But I remember it being close. I can't remember if I won or lost. Sunday Slaughter, we know who he is. Ray, now, Ray and the War Games ID guys, they are relatively unknown on Tabletop Sim because they haven't played a lot. But in case you're not aware, these are the guys that give Van a run for his money when Van's not playing on TTS, when he's not playing on TTS, when he's playing in the tabletop, right? Van is, again, considered basically like, top tier. We had him in the TSL, Carlo. He only lost one game. Mm-hmm. He's considered like full on
9-9.
No, I mean, come on. Only like 3 players went 9-9. Us other members of the Humble Onion Smugglers have to lose a game to keep our humbleness going. They were very good opponents. We lost to the better player on the day. Humble. So
no humble.
No humble for you. The point is, Van's a very good player, right? And these players play against Van and give Van a run for his money. Now Van will typically beat them, but the point is that they're not bad players at all. These are very good players. They put a lot of time and effort into preparing as well.
Absolutely.
I think they deserve it.
You mean you don't go 5-5 with Baratheons without being a very, very good player.
Yep, I agree.
I watched a number of Ray's games, and he made some very good moves. He did all the things that you have to do with Baratheons to be able to win games. You have to take risks. You have to make things look appetizing for your opponent and then punish them when things don't go quite as well as they want them to, especially, the Courtney play style of, using your defensive counters and stuff like that to huge effect. And he did great. Still hate him for qualifying.
Fair. So that brings us on to an interesting point. NA. Stark players. Now, I talked with Lord Commander Bob, and I shouted at Brett multiple times for various different things that they did in their games, mainly because they misplayed. I personally think I watched the games and I saw them play games. I was like, oh, why have you done that play? It's such a bad decision to make that play at that time. But in the end of the day, they still qualify, so I can't complain, right? They're still good players. Mother of Dragons being up there, though, this has become a theme. Let's head over to the stats, actually, and just bask in this. Free Folk had a 62% win rate, so it does drop here. I think they only had 2 players as a whole, maybe 3. We saw Bolton. Rohan obviously did just qualify with the change to Bob dropping, and the Weasel Kingdom had a bit of a shocker of a tournament, went 2 and 3. Middle table, pretty much just a second, well, bottom third even. The point is, we see much better spread from Free Folk in general, but still high win rate, which still, I think this is good. This, to me, shows a very small number of players. This is more representative of where I think the faction is at, right? I do think they're probably pretty good. I do think they're the best faction, personally, against the majority of opponents, minus these Stark powerhouses, but it's not obscenely far ahead that we see in Europe, okay? It also starts to link with the Targaryen win rate, still 60%. Carrying through, it's worth noting, carrying that win rate through from Europe, right? Very small entries in both, and yet virtually identical win rate. If that isn't damning of the power level of Targaryen, I don't know what is, right?
I mean, it's not Targaryen, though. It's Mother of Dragons,
well,
right?
Specifically Mother of Dragons, yeah.
They're identical. They are... Mother of Dragons Targaryens are Mother of Dragons and Mother of Dragons are Targaryens. There's no difference in competitive play.
No, not at all. Starks dropping down to 50% win rate. Now, we've talked about how the rise of one Baratheon player can really throw the spanner in the mix. But the funny thing is, Baratheons didn't do well. Only 47% win rate. Like, they didn't even do well. It's just that one person won with them, right? They only won 7 games. Rey won 5 of them.
Yeah. The other 2 Baratheon entries are basically bottom of the table.
Yeah. Like, that shows what that shows to me. That shows very strong individual skill. That doesn't show, Baratheons are balanced.
It's only small. It's only small number of data. You know
Sure.
what I mean? Like,
of course it is.
That huge
Local
spread. That huge spread tells you that all of those results are hugely player dependent. I noticed Ray came on and said, that he thinks that Baratheons can be competitive if people just played them the way he plays them. I don't see anything in his list that are like, whoa, he's like gone mind-blowingly, outside the meta here. I was actually more impressed, and I was impressed, particularly early in the tournament, with Victoria the Valiant and Open Cities, Andrew Estamont style list. I did think that this was really leaning hard into a new style of heavy sacrifice, and had a real purpose to it into the meta. I honestly believe that Ray's lists are pretty standard. The 2 ways that you can go, I wouldn't use Melisandre. I would use Selyse and Shireen, but that's just me. Other than that, his Courtney army is literally the Courtney army that I had made ready to go to a local tournament before it got cancelled because of COVID. I wasn't running Davos. I was running a different Renly style list. But I don't think that he's piloted it well. He hasn't come up with anything unique. Other people are trying to run a similar style list, in my opinion, and are just not doing as well with it.
Yeah. Yeah, you got anything to add with that, Deoxys, while I just look at the promotions?
Yeah, it's the skill and practice with it that really lets you do that, I think.
Absolutely. I think that he showed he's a very, very good Baratheon player. I mean, his profile speaks for itself, which is that he has something 60 plus games submitted to the site with just Baratheons. Baratheons are one of the most played factions I've had in the last 6 months, and yet I've only played about 20 games with Baratheons. So it shows that if you stick to your faction, if you learn it inside out, you can propel the faction to top tier. That doesn't make your faction top tier. It means that you're a very good player with it.
Yeah,
I agree. Completely agree. So I am just adding up the predictions here from across the board, and they are generally lower across the board than we see in other regions. The first thing to mention, let's just bring this back up. I'll bring the whole thing up so you can see it all. Let's just have a quick reminder. Ariakas, he was promoted. He was everyone's pick.
Top picked.
He was literally, apart from Brett, the only person.
He got put out by his partner from Hero World in the end. Endline finished them off in the last round. So.
Yeah. So Ariakas did not make it, and Groose as a popular pick with his dragons, the hero, the man that's running Targs forever. Alas, he did not make it either. So he doesn't make it. But we do see Brett as the only, just like myself in EU, the only person to appear in everybody's predictions who did make it through. So let's have a little count then, and then we'll get Deoxys' opinions here. So Brett. Hey, he recovers his absolutely diabolical EU score with a very strong 6 in the US area. Brett goes for a strong 4. We see 3 from Gamma. God, sorry about that one, Gamma. That's tough. Gamma also, shout out to Gamma actually. He had a shot at potentially qualifying, and he threw it because he didn't realise that he could have got 9th and it would have ended up being a qualifying spot. And you say threw it, he actually ended up losing anyway, which is a shame. But yeah, he was a bit gutted that he could have potentially made it, but he didn't. Groose coming in at 3, he lost his Dragon's Mirror to get into the final himself. Or get into the finals. Open City with a strong 5, good. I think it's good from George. 4 from Weasel and 4 from Carlo. Pretty weak, Carlo.
Can I have Rowan? He's 9th. He got in anyway.
No. That's not how this works.
I tell you
he
what,
didn't
the
actually get
one pick that I actually sort of regret is I should have backed Bolton. I should have backed Sunday Slaughter. You know, like I was on the fence about it. At the time, I was going entirely based on list, and I didn't quite see enough in. I don't like Mance. You know, I looked at his Mance list and I thought this is just a Harmer list, but worse. But you know, he showed why he's actually one of the highest rated players in TTS right now. He's significantly the highest rated NA. You know, actual true NA. Forget Ardeep, who's actually, you know, from Indonesia. He's he's significantly the highest rated NA player, and you know, he proved it after bouncing back, submarining his way right from a first round loss right up into into a 4-1 second place win. So I'd say that's the only one that I didn't stick. Should have stuck with my guns. But yeah, I did not think that we would see Baratheon qualify. I did not think we would see Atlanta qualify. And how are me and Deoxys doing versus each other in this final round then?
Get wrecked. Deoxys has 5. he gets the Ardeep math prediction.
Ardeep math.
Yeah, Carla didn't back him, but he did pick Tobbo. So I mean, it's, you know, you both picked Tobbo in the end. So I think, by dint of pure and utter luck, not luck at all, by clear good prediction, Brett ends on 9 points for Brett. Chris Eustace ends on 10, topping him out by 1. Gamma ends on a respectable 7. Oh, you got to respect a 7. Gruselug also ends on a 7. Open City ends on an 11. Strong showing from Open City, currently in the lead. Weasel Kingdom ends on a 9. Carlo ends on an 11. But Deoxys tops it out. Not only does he win the EU qualifier, but he wins the predictions with 12 predictions. So Deoxys, I didn't just get you on here because you won EU. I actually got on here because I'd already kind of realised that I think you'd counted. I counted them up earlier and I was like, I'm pretty sure you've won. So Deoxys, you've won the predictions. How do you feel?
Yay me. Great.
You can go home happy man now, right?
Yeah, it's plus I start with extra TP for the finals, right?
Yeah, that's exactly
First
it.
game win.
Sure. You can have as
In
many
my-
TPs as you want. You still have to win your games.
Okay, fair enough. I agree, Carlo. I'm surprised I didn't pick Bolton Skincare. There's Chris Tran up there, but yeah, after playing Deep Math twice or 3 times now, just off of the skill and experience of playing with him, so yeah, I don't care if he's playing Baratheons. I'm pretty sure he'll qualify.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Question to both of you.
Okay.
Which of the top 8 or 9, which of the 8 NA qualifiers are you not looking forward to meeting? Which ones are you scared of?
Okay.
And
You go
silence
first,
means
yeah, whatever.
silence means none. Silence means none, and you've got no fears.
I am worried about playing Ray. Not because I don't think I can beat him. I'm worried about him because if something, like if I make a mistake, I believe Ray is the kind of player who will make me lose the game. And that is it's never nice to play a game against an opponent where if you make one small mistake, you could lose, because it puts a lot of pressure on you to make sure everything is right. And And that's exactly what he did throughout the NA qualifiers. It was his opponents making mistakes that he then massively capitalized on. Sometimes which were mistakes that he baited into the opponent making. He's very good at doing that. He's playing a faction, Brathians, that are very good at doing that. So, do I want to face him? Not really. I don't want to have to face him. Maybe, I mean, Zero Talk, I've got a bit of a history with him. He's playing Mother of Dragons. I don't feel too worried there if he keeps that up. I think I am actually playing Endline in the first round. I know Endline's a good Lannister player, and I have an absolute history of losing to Lannisters when I just shouldn't. Just absolute throwing games against Lannisters, so there's a good chance I'll probably just lose my first game against him. But I'm not worried.
Mostly.
Yeah, mostly you. So yeah, no, I think Ray is the only person in that qualifier who I'm actually afraid of playing, because I feel like going into the game I have to play perfectly. Thank. Doxies?
For me, I don't think it's anything player-wise. It's more the factions. Free Folk especially for Winds of Winter. That was a tough game I had against Tom Tyler, and that was the hardest game of the EU for me. That mission in Free Folk is one of them, and also, again as well with the Endline, the Tyrion list is another thing I'm also worried about. Just that counterplot coming out at the right time, or me just missing something. I think that's what I'd be worried about. So Endline or any of the Free Folk, but probably more Chris. Mission dependent.
Yeah, he's the only NA player currently playing Free Folk.
Well, Rowan's in, isn't he?
No, yeah, Rowan is. I forgot actually Rowan. Yeah, did obviously get Lord Commander Bob's spot. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Carlo, who are you afraid of playing? Oh wait, that's right, you're not in the finals. Anyway, so yeah, we've got some stats on the finals, right?
Yeah.
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 So, we've got a lot to talk about today. I'm apologising, guys, ahead of time. Let's see if I can transition this.
Not really. We're an hour and a half in isn't really ahead of time, is it, Mickey?
No.
I'll tell you what. There's one final point I actually want to kind of make about NA.
Go on.
I feel like in EU, the regional, you could predict the whole regional based off faction picks, which is what I did and did very well at. I think when I look at NA, I can actually tell myself I should have predicted that much better. And what's entirely predictable about NA is the clubs that people have qualified from. We just see the same clubs at the top again and again, which means that, you know, like there are just a few groups of players that are just doing significantly better than everybody else. So, you know, we see Wargames ID, we see, you know, Sunday Slaughter and Whimsical Gal, you know, they're the Family Time Game and Gamers Haven. Like that's, you know, they're just calling themselves different things, silly names. That's three people from the same very regular set of opponents. We throw in a couple of Heroes World players, and then we throw in, you know, a wild card of Tobo Mott and Zero Talk. Those two are like individuals on the TTS scene. They're playing in lots of events as individuals, but the rest are playing from very regular gaming groups. And actually the biggest surprise, for me at least, is that more Heroes World players didn't manage to qualify. I know quite a couple of them came down to they had to play each other and that cost them, but you know, there were a lot of Hero World entrants. The big name that everybody knows from Heroes World is Ariakas, didn't make it in the end. Endline's been there a while, but you know, like they told me about players that I should be looking out for. Thranduil didn't quite make it. You know, they're up towards the top, but you know, Heroes World, I think could, you know, I was expecting a little bit more actually. I was expecting 3 or 4 qualifiers from them. So, you know, I do think that NA can still be considered predictable, but it's based on gaming group strength. I think that is much more prevalent, and it's much less predictable based on faction and list design.
I think that's very fair actually, and it is the yeah, we played each other a lot. Yeah, that's the thing. You play each other a lot. You did used to play a lot. We know we spoke to my relationship with Heroes World actually goes all the way back to Gruce, right? Gruselug played at Heroes World on and off randomly. And then like Ariakas appeared on the scene. And I'd already spoken to Grusalug when I did my Baratheon overview, and then Ariakas went on to do really well in the NRG event on the back of that as well. And it all these things came together, and then we got more and more people joining this group. We saw N-Line coming in for the TSL. We saw people like Khan Artist who were like, oh yeah, I play in that group, who was a player in quite early days as well. We saw Nodnerb, who's massive on the main Discord, but he was suddenly like, oh yeah, I'm playing with these guys, I'm going to enter the TTS scene. He started lining that way, and you see so all these people who you kind of know the names of a little bit already started being like, oh yeah, I'm part of that gaming group. And you're like, Christ, that's actually not only a really good gaming group, but it's quite a big one.
Yeah.
It's in terms of active players. So I actually want to give them a bit of a shout out, because I think they've done a really good job of creating a community. And really supporting one another and really growing the game, just not in a local community sense, but also on the TTS scene, getting all those players who are really keen from before, getting them across the TTS and actually getting them to enter tournaments and play games. I think that's really good.
Yep.
So shout out to Ariakas and N-Line. I know they've been pushing it, and also the other guys there I've mentioned. And also a big shout out to anyone who's trying to basically get their gaming groups expanding during this period of awful time. So we'll move on to entries, and we've got a couple of entries. We start off with the entries by faction. Let's give it a bit of a zoom into the final. Now, Carlo has stuck entries by faction in as what they qualified as. So Stark and Free Folk both qualify with 5 players each. 6% is 1 player. 6.25. So we see 31% for each of those is 5 players each. We see 1 Night's Watch, 1 Baratheon, 1 Lannister, and 3 Targaryen. Okay, in the top 16. These factions might change when people are allowed to change faction between now and the finals. They're allowed to change lists. They're allowed to change commanders. They're probably even allowed to change what color clothes they're wearing on the day. We should probably do that every day. Point is, is that healthy based on just the 16 qualifiers, do you think, Carlo? Does that show a balanced game?
It's tough. So, interestingly, like the Stark at 31% is actually roughly what their entrance numbers are. So, it sort of just reflects their popularity. The big winners were Free Folk, who are, about 10% of the entry, but 30% of the qualifiers. And Targaryens, who are 5 people entered and 4 of them qualified. That's a problem. Sorry, 3 of them qualified, 1 didn't, one was quite low, one didn't quite make it. But I think that there are pretty repeatable metrics for success. I think there are 3 big blocks here. And yes, there is a slice for Night's Watch. But when you look at how many people entered, that's not a good slice. Baratheons, still resoundingly mega popular. Tons of people play Baratheons. 1 qualifies. Tons of people still play Lannisters. Not as many as in the past, but tons of people are still playing them. We're still talking 20-some% players. 1 qualifies. I think we will see how far certain factions go, but there are only 3 factions in discussion for being able to win for me, and that is Free Folk, Starks, and Mother of Dragons. Based on both the number of entrants that they've had, but also that I just don't see the other factions scaring those 3. It's probably better than where we were a while ago, when I actually would have said the only 2 factions that are ever going to win an event are Free Folk or Starks. If you hold a big event, it's only going to be won by one or the other. There's a 3rd one in contention now, but I think that it comes at the expense of marginalizing everybody else so much. Mother of Dragons makes Baratheons a really bad shot, makes Lannisters a really bad shot, and I think it hurts all but a very specific Night's Watch list. So I think that Mother of Dragons is marginalizing the things that can be viable. But the things that already were doing well, Free Folk and Starks, will continue to just be able to take on the Mother of Dragons. I think it's where we've been for a long time, and I'm very ready for that to be shaken up in a significant way.
Deoxys, do you think there's anything you want to add there? Do you think you're just kind of like on the same boat as well?
Yeah, same things as about what should be expected.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, for what it's worth, that 31% free folk, we could actually pretend it was 25% free folk and 38% Stark if we count Lord Commander Bob Rohan swapping. Doesn't change the wedges that much at all, but it's again like it just the one dropout we've had does not change those wedges in any significant way that matters.
I do think there's an interesting thing about free folk. You know, we've been talking about them a decent amount. Deoxy's talking about whether or not he thinks free folk or Stark are better. I think that free folk do very, very well across a lot of games. I personally think that free folk are currently the always the bridesmaid, never the bride. I think that there are certain game modes and certain lists that at the very top tier, the free folk fall at that last step, whereas Starks can put some stuff on the table, which if you pilot it right, just doesn't lose. Free folk, there are matchups here and there, particularly into certain Stark lists, into certain game modes, which are really, really bad. I think the only reverse of that, as you mentioned, is whether or not the secret missions and insignificant spam like can really flip that round. So it might be there is a bit of a luck of the draw. You know, we'll see what happens. We'll see who comes up against what. But yeah, I think for me, free folk, as much as their win rate and overall power and doing well and qualifying, I'm gonna have to bet on a Stark winner again. I really do think it. You know, I massively thought so in the Masters, and this is pretty much the same tournament again. You know, I think we had one Baratheon, one Night's Watch, one
we had
one
two,
Lannister then, right?
Two Baratheon. We had Stannis, Thousand Ball Commander played Baratheon as well. As his,
no.
Didn't
he played Stark.
Did he play Stark? Oh yeah, he sold out, didn't he? Yeah, he sold out.
Yeah. The only difference back then was we didn't have Mother of Dragons. That entire Mother of Dragons wedge was another part of Stark. We had like 50% Stark entries.
Yeah.
And
that's right. Actually,
I still think that Stark beats Mother of Dragons myself. So my bet is on a Stark winner.
Okay. Entries by commander then, just a very quick look at this one. We see Stark being the most popular commander from the qualifiers. We see Harmer being up there at 4 as well. Howland up there, Mance, Steyr, and Mother of Dragons. Not a surprise from all 3 Targaryen players running Mother of Dragons. Whoop-de-doo. And we've got one final thing to show us here, which is the combined wedge. But the important bit for us, if I zoom out a little bit, you'll see the whole thing. That average player ranking. It's pretty damn high. Pretty damn high.
This is now higher rated than the TTS Masters was. That, roughly speaking, should always be the case. Like, the site should always be ever so slowly inflating its ratings. You know, that's just a whole thing, which I won't go into. But, you know, the biggest event, if we ran this event again in a year's time, I would hope that would really say like 1,700 or something. But point is that we're talking about an incredibly high quality event here, the highest rated event that's ever run on the site. And I expect it to be the most competitive thing that there's been.
There you go. Big words, Deoxys. Are you going to be competitive, or are you going to turn up with some chump lists like neutrals?
I think this time there will be no chump lists. I'll actually not do a troll list this time.
You're not gonna get baited into Greyjoys then, no?
Not Greyjoys, no.
But Deoxys, you saw how well I did with Greyjoys yesterday against Chris Eustace when he played John Night's Watch, right?
I did. I saw a solid 11-1.
Yeah, 11-1 loss for Greyjoys. They are trash.
Back-to-back 11-1 defeats, Mickey?
I got 10-2, thank you very much. I made it worse against Chris Eustace. Yeah, Greyjoys into 1.6 are absolute trash. It's actually unbelievable how bad they are. um, like they just have nothing. I won't go. I mean, I ran Vargo, so I probably deserve some meme for that. But the point is, they're still absolute trash. So don't run Greyjoys against 1.6 armies, guys. It's just absolute sadness. Certainly if you get against anyone of equal skill. All right then.
In honor of Weasel Kingdom's trash talk season.
Go on.
Come on,
Finish.
EU big boys. 8 players from the EU regional are going to play. 8 players from the NA regional. How many are EU going to win? Put your money where your mouth is.
I need to have a quick little look at.
Are you gonna tell me that these 2 qualifiers were of equal strength, or are you gonna tell me that EU was predictable because EU are better players and NA are only allowing these players to qualify because they're just not good enough to beat the bad factions?
So Ardeep is going to play against. Oh yeah, by the way, awesome. Look at these. Look at the faction flags, or the country flags on the tournament now. You get to see these guys. So we see Ardeep playing against Largs, right?
Masara.
1 versus 8. Oh, it's 1
Masara came in 8.
Oh, 100% 1 NA will win.
80%, Rossi. 80% is not a number that you can make out of 8.
Not quite. I reckon it will be 7/8. So what? 82.5%.
7.
7 EU.
Win. Whew. Any raises on that, Deoxys?
No raises. No, I don't think it's gonna be an 8-8.
6,
I think
7,
6.
5?
I think 6.
6-2. I'm actually more
And
inclined to
it
go
will change
6-2.
pending faction choices and whatnot. Whenever the
That's the thing. It
Things
depends on what factions people choose and how the matchup is and the game mode. You know, we might end up seeing like a lot of start versus free folk in round 1, and it's like, you know, fire and blood or something like that, and it's just like an absolute slaughter, or something similar. But apart from those very extreme die rolls, if you will, of factions versus game modes and things like that, I think it could be. I think 6 is probably reasonable. Yeah. I think Ray will beat Furioku.
Tell you what's super interesting for me, actually.
I think it depends what he runs.
Yeah.
Tell you what's super interesting for me is that even people from NA, the best anybody from NA has told me is that they think it's going to be a 4-4. I've never heard a single person tell me that more people from NA are going to win against EU.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe people are just scared to go against the pack, scared to go against the loudest opinion in the room, or just the consensus is that EU is stronger right now. That EU has more depth and more strong players across the board. Also interesting that, you know, like a number of the strong qualifiers from EU from NA were not actually from NA. Of course, Deoxys won the region.
Yeah.
I mean, what can we? I mean, the thing that we breezed over is that EU wasn't won by anybody from EU. It was won by somebody from Oz Asia.
Yeah.
And NA wasn't won by anybody from NA. It was won by somebody from Oz Asia. So, you know, like, I really feel like those guys should have had their own regional, but
they didn't have enough players.
They can't put together the players. They're just gonna have to enter the others, and they did, and they absolutely took it apart. You know, I think in total, 4 players. I might be wrong, but I think 4 players. Deoxys into the EU, and then Tobo Mott, Ardeep Math, and
Claw.
Claw all entered NA.
Death 1942 as well.
Oh, Death 1942.
He's Australian as well.
Death 1942. Yeah.
Of course. 4 out of 5 qualifiers though is an insane qualification rate for the whole region. So, you know, like,
I will say I think that's I think
kind of blows the question of who's stronger, EU or NA, out the water, doesn't it? Because the answer is who's stronger, EU or NA. No, the answer is Australasia.
Australasia, yeah. I mean, I will go as far as saying though that if you've got a massive region change like that, you will see the best players tend to be the ones that carry over. So we're not just cherry picking a selection of Oz players. We're selecting probably the best from that region. But the point, I still agree with you 100%. If they had more players, I think it would be a very, very good, if not probably the strongest region to watch. At least on a par with Europe, if not better, right? That's definitely what I would say. So there we go. Deoxys, I will obviously catch up with you later on, but well done for winning your prediction prize. And Carlo, it sucks to be you because you got beaten by Ray and beaten by Baratheons and beaten by Deoxys, which is I know what that feels like. Don't worry. Yeah, we'll get all of their various different sportsmanship prizes. Oh yeah, sportsmanship. That was hilarious.
Right, you've already just goaded me. You just goaded me into I'm gonna up my bet. Ray doesn't even make it to the final if he plays Baratheons.
That was easy. I just had to say like one or two things.
Ray doesn't make it to the final.
Wow. Cool. Brilliant. Awesome. Sportsmanship went down well. Sportsmanship scores are on the various different EU, NA sections there. Go chat about the sportsmanship scores. I'm hilarious because I'm a character on here. I won the EU sportsmanship, which is definitely like it's not rigged, but it's because I'm a community character. Nothing more than that. I don't think I'm particularly nice to play with. Doxies, you mark me as a 0, right? Or a 1, lowest score?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Automatic. I did it before the game even started.
Yeah, I thought so. And I think, was it Illegal came second, I think, and then who was it in NA? It was
Andrew L from West Coast Bannerman and Zero Talk.
Yeah, Zero Talk. Who is actually really nice.
I'm very glad that it shows that people don't just rate people who they lose to badly. I'm very glad that people who qualified still managed to score good sportsmanship scores. It shows that you can give your opponent an enjoyable game, even if you beat them, even if you're playing hyper competitively. Some of these players will have been in games that made or broke qualification, and still managed to play in a way which is enjoyable for everybody involved. So, I think not a lot of people liked their sportsmanship score. I don't think I'll publish them in future. But there we go. People don't like to be rated in such a way. They like to give out 10s and expect to receive 10s, and when you normalize and average everything to a 6, because that is average, that is normal, everybody's like, how do I score so low? Well, okay.
I know, right? So anyway, thanks a lot for joining us, Deoxys. It's been what is it now, nearly 8 a.m. for you over there?
Yeah, just about.
Are you gonna go to bed in a minute?
Sun must be way up by now, right?
Oh yeah, it's up at 6, I think. 6:30, something like that.
Are you going to go to bed now and just sleep throughout the entire day like a really productive member of society?
That's right. I am a bum. Essentially a bum.
It's okay. I know you only...
be able to compete in the EU meta, hey?
That's right. That's how you win.
Commit everything.
Drop your job.
Yeah. Hey, I know you're a student until very... Are you still a student? Or are you graduated now?
A few weeks ago.
Oh, right. So that's fair enough.
I'm on the job hunt now.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. I obviously hope you get a job between now and the finals, so it makes scheduling all those final games really hard, so you can't enter them and you have to fall out the tournament, like just after the first round, though.
I want it to be after the final so I can put in the results onto my resume.
I won the World Cup! Hire me! What's your job? Admin assistant. Anyway. No, obviously best of luck with that, Deoxys. You'll be great. And Carlo, any final words before we leave it here? It's been nearly 2 hours.
A Baratheon will not win the World Cup.
Deoxys, enter Baratheon, yeah?
I do not have that much faith in my Baratheon.
Fair enough. Well, at least one player won't. Therefore, they won't, as Carlo knows. So, yes, guys. We will catch up with you next week. We will catch up on probably more Visions in the Flames. We'll have a much shorter episode. Probably a lot less to talk about. Probably some other little things, like some other community stuff that's going on. But until then, guys, thanks a lot for joining us, Deoxys. Thanks a lot for joining me again, Carlo, and we will catch you next week.
Bye bye.